On this episode of Real Estate on the Rocks, we're going to explain what to do when shit hits the fan.
Welcome to Real Estate on the Rocks, where you get top shelf real estate conversations served straight up, never watered down. Here's your host, Dave Snowberger.
All right, welcome back. I love that intro. It just gets my head just moving, popping, slamming. Like that intro a lot. I'm joining the studio today with my main man, Marshall Tucker.
What's going on?
Not much. We got the new guy over here, James Mendez, looking like he's got video going now. So we'll see how this works out before we start bringing to you Real Estate on the Rocks live. No,
that's
live.
A camera.
Marshall would choke if we did it live. You would change like, hello, my name is Marshall Tucker. Get all nervous. All right, so, man, let's get right into it today. Don't forget to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. New episodes are available every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We've got about 90 episodes or so that you can go back and binge listen to. A lot of it's some of the same topics we bring up all the time because our message doesn't change. It just keeps improving and keeps evolving. Not involving, evolving. Evolving. All right. So we had talked a little bit about like when I said it in the intro, when shit hits the fan. You know, I'm not a big fan of cussing on the show, but however, we are all adults here, I'd assume. So when shit hits the fan, man, we got to know what to do. You know, sometimes we can hit that fight or flight mode, right? So I really like your thing you drew on the board over here. Snake equals run or kick, fight / flight / fight.
Oh, I was paraphrasing my notes.
There you go. All right, so since you wrote the notes and only you can understand them and you use the whole board for your own notes, why don't you go ahead and explain what that means?
All right, so when you're in fight or flight mode, you know, your heart starts beating, you start sweating a little bit, you know, something's going on. So naturally, if you see a snake and you take off running from it, you're in flight mode. But if you kick that snake, then you're in fight mode.
Right.
So it's just kind of, you know, and I guess that can happen when you're just sitting around and maybe a listing agent calls you about a deal and drops a bombshell on you, you know, or texts you that whatever it is, and your heart starts beating, and you start getting upset a little bit, and you're like, what's going on? You're probably in fight or flight mode. So you should take a step back. I like to give it a few minutes to, you know, recollect myself, especially if it's on a text message. Just, you know, give yourself 5, 10, 15 minutes, you know, kick it around with some of your people and then respond to it. Yeah. And then you'll probably have a lot cooler head and the conversation would probably be a little bit more positive.
Especially if that comes over at nighttime.
Right.
You know, like I see a lot of these things where more than likely that agent that needs to deliver me some sort of news more than likely pondered on it themselves.
You know what, Dave? I don't want you sleeping well tonight, so I'm going to drop this on you at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, they didn't just come up with their client didn't qualify at 9 o'clock at night. You know, they just now they've dealt with their own flight or fight mode the whole time, and now they put it into our court to where we've got to break it to our seller, possibly our buyer, whatever's happening, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, I've certainly trained myself not to be reactional to those type of things, and I realize that everything can be worked out. And nothing's the end of the world. And certainly while you're, when you get the bad news at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, there's nothing that can help that news. And so just handle it in the morning. Right. Don't let it disrupt your sleep. Don't stress out. You'll be able to handle it.
Negotiations go better when you don't have the emotions flowing through it anyway.
Yeah. If you're reactional, this is the wrong business for you. Wow.
What's up, guy?
Got a slideshow going in the back all of a sudden. This Apple TV has its mind of its own.
Hey.
So I think Alicia's on here somewhere. Alicia's back in the podcast with us. Hey, Alicia, how you doing? So, okay, so let's talk a little bit more about flight or fight mode. James, are you as the newest agent on the team and you're getting into this stuff, would you say that a lot more times you're in probably flight mode than you are fight mode?
In the sense that it's more of a scattered approach or scattered like reactions to things. I'm trying to constantly do a bunch of different things to kind of get going and moving and everything in business. So in that regard, but when chaotic things happen during transactions, that doesn't really bother me too much. Maybe it's from, everything that's going on. I just kind of process through like, all right, they said no, or they said this. Okay, what's next? All right. And just kind of work my way through things. And if it doesn't work, like, okay, on to the next. So I think I'm pretty good with that. But I think on the other side of getting people through the system, I could be a little bit better with the calm focus portion of it.
Yeah, I typically engage anyone. I don't engage anyone in fight mode. Yeah. And I typically don't. And so I always want a win-win to every situation, and I really do come from that mindset. Is like I know to get the deal done for my seller or buyer, but typically I'm on the seller side. For my seller is that I have to some sort of way appease that buyer's needs, and their agent's needs. And so a lot of times I like to think of myself more of a connector. And so when they come at me and they're just ridiculous with anything that seems like I would say a fight or a negotiation shouldn't be a fight. A negotiation should just be kind of like just a conversation of my seller's needs versus your buyer's needs, and we come to a mutual agreement. The thing is we have to be professional, and we have to really kind of talk through our problems and say, hey, look, that's not going to happen. I had one certainly recently that was, I want you to, it was a negotiation, and we kind of bent on the price a little bit, and then they're like, we want the refrigerator also, and it's just like, okay, well, the refrigerator's broken, but we'll put it back in there. And he said he would fix it also. So we called a repair guy to fix it, right? And then when I said that it wasn't fixable, they're like, what are your expectations here? Because we were giving you the fridge for free, so we shouldn't have to go out and buy another fridge. And she's like, you'll be buying us another fridge. And I was like, whoa, it was broken in the first place. We said that we would call somebody out to fix it. And I don't care. We said there's a refrigerator on that amendment. We want a refrigerator. And it's like, oh, really? So we battled through that a little bit. And it's like, well, what are your expectations? If they were to buy a refrigerator, what are your expectations? And she said, one that's comparable to the one that's in the kitchen. Well, that's a $3,800 refrigerator that crapped out on them after 2 years, And so like they're not going to buy you a $3,800 refrigerator. And so I was like, what it is, I'll work on my seller for a second. So I called the seller, talked to him. He's like, okay, I'll look for a fridge. And so he started looking around for a fridge. And then she goes, and we want you to send a picture of it. Send me a picture before you purchase it. And I just flat out, finally, I was in fight mode. And I was like, okay, that's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. What do you mean that's not going to happen? I'm not going to have my seller go out and look for a fridge, then text it to me and whatever I'm doing in my day. Right? Now I've got to worry about this fridge, right? So I can be out with my family doing whatever we're doing. He sends me a fridge. Maybe I don't get the text. Maybe my phone's in my car. I don't like to have my phone around my family after a certain time. I don't look at it. He's out looking at the fridge. He's standing there waiting to purchase it on the approval. Now I send it over to you. You're out with your family, right? You're doing your thing, right? Okay, so now you send it over. Now it's over to your buyer. And so your buyer looks at it and says, I don't want it. I don't want that type of fridge, and so it comes back to
back you now. Chain.
Yeah, and then back, boom, boom. And this could be a very long process. How about no? You're going to get what I put in there. That's that. And that's exactly, almost verbatim, that's what I said. And I don't want to ever be that way.
Right.
But I had to be because she was taking a little bit of an advantage. And so I finally just kind of put my foot down and said, here we go. And all I got back was, okay. And then that solved the problem. There was no more anything after that. We got them a nice fridge and put it in there, and it was beautiful. And they did the walkthrough, and they thanked me for the fridge.
It's pushing,
but it was just kind of pushing. And so I would say we started that out kind of in flight mode because the property was on the market for quite some time.
Was the client asking for that, or was it the agent?
I think it was the agent.
Yeah.
It was the agent pushing for it. So yeah, and so typically when I pick up that it's the agent, that's when I get more into the fight mode thing. And it's like, okay, well, if you really want to negotiate, let's go. Let's take hard
your
stances
commission
with each
in
other.
there.
Right. And so it really didn't have any details to do with the house. It was a free refrigerator, right? There was an amendment sign, and all it said was refrigerator.
Didn't say working.
Again, I could have bought you a yellow 1970s beer fridge.
It didn't say working.
And then the audacity. Like, I really like this agent, actually. And if she's listening, I'm sorry. But they asked, like, a few days before closing, like, can they have the other refrigerator also because he likes to tinker? And I was like, oh, my God, are you serious? And so I tell him, and he's like, dude, I was selling it for parts because I'm trying to recoup some of my money. And I was like, oh, okay. And then, like, an hour later, he's like, okay, I'll leave it. It's more of a hassle to pull it apart anyway and sell it for parts. And I was like, yeah, so just let it go, bro. But anyway, that was my little story on fight or flight. Number 2 here, handle an
uncomfortable task each day. So you have your normal daily business, and then you have putting out fire business.
You can translate, Marshall.
I'm just blown away by your handwriting. Is comfortable.
Portable.
Oh, I did write it wrong, didn't I?
Uncomfortable. Handle an uncomfortable task each day. What would that be? Give us some examples. Give me some examples of uncomfortable tasks for you.
Well, my thoughts were
besides lead gen.
Well, no. So I think that's delivering news to a client. So if I have some bad news to a client, I mean, good news, you always want to call them right away and be like, hey, guess what, man, offer's accepted. But then sometimes you get some bad news. And sometimes that bad news can fix itself. So I don't want to sit there and call my client and deliver bad news and then it all fixes itself and you get them upset for nothing. And other parts is like, I think about things quite a bit. So if I have something and it's late at night or whatever, I'm holding on to it, I'm probably not going to get any sleep that night because I just think about things over and over. So if it's something that I can unload and it needs to be unloaded, then I feel that those difficult conversations should be had earlier on.
Right.
And so, calling the client, having the bad news, if it's unavoidable, and just lay it out there, be transparent.
Yeah. And I think we all run into that. And I know what some of the bad news is you're delivering. And a lot of times that bad news can be through the right qualifications and asking the right questions and letting the clients know really where you're coming from. If your clients, I know some of your bad news that you have to deliver is that you lost in multiple offer when your clients weren't willing to come up X amount of dollars to, really just the asking price in 2 to 3 days. You had some clients there that were going for the gusto, like, it's $450, going at $420. It's like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? The property's been on the market for 2 days. They've got 9 offers. You really want to go in at $420? And so right there, I think that the bad news gets a little bit more deliverable. Like, hey, the bad news is you got to sit there and write a shit offer for,
Bad news is I got to get you in my car again and drive you around.
The bad news is, that. So, all right. So,
but just not harboring, that kind of stuff. Just get it off your chest sooner than later.
Right. So stagger, is that what you meant? Stagger if you can?
Stagger if you can. So if you have, 4 normal business type things going on and you've got 1 fire to put out, do a little bit of your normal business, put the fire out, and do your normal business. No one says that you have to come in and do all the fires at, the first thing in the morning when you first come in.
Yeah. I like to. You're right though. A lot of times, the fires can just work themselves out or put themselves out, and then
they can sit there and glow a little bit.
Right. Sometimes you'll get news from the lender like you might be a point short on your qualification, and just kind of like okay, and then you take that as that's a death that deal's over, right? And it's like, well, we need about 7 more days for a rescore, so you don't have. You have to just be a little bit more patient and give it 7 more days, and it could possibly work itself out. And that might not even be something that you would mention to anyone. However, you would have to actually obviously mention it to the buyer and let them know that they're out of option already. The only recourse really to get their earnest money back is that the financing contingencies falling through, right? So you have to watch all your dates on your contract because I know you ran into that also to where you got right up to where, you basically needed 3 days and they delivered your appraisal, right?
The appraisal
2 days
came in way late.
Yeah. And so it was like, okay, we're going to lose $5,000 because the bank set the appraisal. And then you found out that the bank sat on it for 10 days.
Yep.
And then you could do what? So you solved a lot of problems there because even if they lost their appraisal, you had the bank committed to refunding their money, right? So reimbursing their money, right? Mm-hmm. So for everything, not just the appraisal, but for the earnest money and everything else.
They got quite a bit back from the lender that transaction.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Pretty nice. Okay, so moving on here. So we have a support group. So you're working through all these things. Where do we end up on this? Oh, when the shit hits the fan, have a support group. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Or person, right? So so that you can unload your stress. You can brainstorm some problems, which is masterminding. Dave said join some Facebook groups, hire a psychologist. No, I said if you can't afford to hire a psychologist or have somebody to go talk to, right? So then you can join some of these Facebook groups. Certainly we're a part of a lot of Facebook groups and we see people just airing their dirty laundry or their problems constantly. And sometimes they get some help. There's other agents out there that tell them, hey, calm down. A lot of times they get crappy answers. And then you have all the real estate professionals that have sold real estate for a year or two that chime in and say this is the way that you should do this and it's the absolute wrong advice. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people need to preface it that they're just venting, I think, And then some groups are more prone, are better for venting than other groups that are really there for, like all the actionable stuff. Like how do I do this? How do I handle this type of situation versus all the problems, right? So you can join the Facebook group. You can join a committee. You can talk to people inside or outside of your office.
Do you have a mentor already, or lean on the team?
Talk to your friends. Yeah, I mean, when I go, I've said certainly like 15
every
times
morning
today.
I come in here and ask James, hey, what's going on, man? Is there anything that we need to talk about? How's your business going? And we just do a quick 5-minute brainstorm. Just lean on the team.
And I do the same thing to you when I get in. So it's just kind of a triple effect. And then we do the same thing with our admin staff.
Every time I text you after 8 o'clock, you start getting a little worried.
Yeah.
If you text me after 8, I'm like, oh, or
you
clients.
always ask me like some obscure freaking question. And I'm just like, oh, here we go.
What does this rabbit trail mean?
Yeah. Let me call him and address this real quick. Because if not, I know that Marshall's going to stay up all night long worrying about it. And then he'll be unproductive as hell in the morning. So let's go ahead and get this out. And I try to talk him down off the ledge, but a lot of times it doesn't work. But find somebody to talk to. I talk to Nicole all the time. She doesn't know anything about real estate.
It's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And so I unload on her sometimes and just say, hey, and then if she adds in that like maybe I'm the problem, I'm like, you're not listening.
Am I the problem?
I'm never the problem.
and sometimes I can work through that. And the key there is being man enough to own the situation.
Ego.
If it is your problem, that you created, are you man enough to own the situation and say that you were wrong? So that's one thing that I work through all the time because I have definitely been wrong in my career.
Yeah, I'm sure it's good to have an outside perspective too, because you're getting the point of view of somebody who isn't in the business, isn't polluted. Their minds and ideas aren't polluted with the stuff that's constantly going around in real estate. They can give you an outside objective opinion to say hey, have you tried this? You thought of that, and kind of soundboard it off and kind of work your way through like process wise to go through it, and maybe they can find something that you hadn't thought of, or point you in the right direction, or because of that conversation it can lead you down the path where you need to go after the process.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right, number 4 here. You're going to have to read that again, Marshall.
Realize worst case scenario is not actually going to happen.
Right. So that's one thing with you I know is huge, is the worst case scenario.
I feel like it's like a game of chess, and like I'm thinking about all the possible outcomes and reverse engineering it all the way back up to getting the deal closed.
Right. And it never works out that way. So, it's usually like, just calm down. We'll work through it. We're paid to solve problems. Let's solve the problem. That's probably my newest fun thing to do is realize, take a step back, not be reactional, realize that, my job is to solve problems at a high level. And so a lot of times I have to solve those problems for my team. I have to solve those problems for my sellers and my buyers or my family or whatever else. I have to solve problems at a high level. Right. And so I'll say it again, you get paid in proportion to the problems you solve. If you if you can't solve these problems, or if you're in constant flight mode and you're ignoring things, maybe this isn't the career for you, because these problems are never going to stop. And a lot of times all they've done over the past 4 or 5 years that we've taken on more business is actually intensify, because now we've put ourselves more at bats. Right. So we're listing more homes. We're working with more buyers. Certainly when you do a number of transactions like we do, there's definitely pain that comes through with it. Right. And so, Marshall's killing me by just fucking.
I'm a doodler.
Dicking off over there.
And what I was going to say, that's a great time to turn your phone off at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. If you're going to set your boundary, and that way, with the worst scenarios that are actually going to happen, and that way you don't get rocked at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and then you can't sleep. So if you don't get it to me by 7 or 8 o'clock, then I'm probably not going to respond or see it until the morning.
Yeah, I wish I was one of those guys that like actually locked my phone.
It's
in a
hard
drawer.
to do. It's hard to do because you're playing on Facebook, you're playing on something, and even if you have it silenced, they still sneak in there and send you a sentence. And you're like, ah.
Why'd you just say you're playing on Facebook? I've had an uphill battle for the past 3 years with Nicole to convince her that I'm not sitting there on Facebook.
It's true. Occasionally I'm playing on Facebook.
That I'm actually working. that I actually need my phone to work.
Before going to bed, I jump on the news and read a little bit of news, look at the Facebook.
The Facebook. Well, the other day, like I said, I got 7 referrals over the past week or so, and 2 of those came from Facebook, being I was the first one on the scene on one of them, and someone said Georgetown. I was like, hey, I live in Georgetown. My whole team lives in Georgetown. Everybody does. And, we've sold real estate at a decent level there for the past few years. And you're about to get bombarded with Facebook videos, text messages, phone calls, everything else. So why don't you just choose me and go ahead and delete that post? And he did.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. And so we got the referral. And
like,
so
yeah, I'm
obviously
out.
that's a buyer referral. So what's that do? That goes straight into your lap, right? So I'm the team leader. I explained to him intelligently that I am the team leader. And anybody on the buyer side, I work with Marshall Tucker. This is who you are. This is what Marshall does. He is a specialist at this, and what you're going to be under contract today, right?
Yeah.
So killing it. And that all came from me staring at Facebook.
That's right. We were not playing.
Yeah.
Market research. Market research.
That's right.
So, yeah, I'm certainly not playing all the time. But,
So number 5 is remember who you are.
oh, that's deep.
Yeah, I struggle with that one. It's like, what does that mean exactly? And I guess it means remember where you've come from and what you've gone through. So all your past deals, 99.9% of all my deals have closed. I've come a long way. I've fought a lot of hard fights, and you start remembering all that experience that you have, and remember who you are.
There you go.
So the shit.
Or
hits
if you
the fan.
knew all the leases you completed, or all the, the fact that you completed all the coursework, and find something that you've completed, you've done really well on. You're
the
passed,
qualified professional problem
You still know
solver.
more than everybody you're working with. So lean on those victories.
Yeah, I rarely ever do that. Lean on those victories. From what we've accomplished as a team, and what we've accomplished with getting the listeners that we have now on the podcast, and all these things. I forget about all that stuff, and a lot of times if I don't keep the mindset right and have that scarcity mindset a little bit, all that stuff can creep in, then I'm just not doing enough. I could be doing more, and it's like I beat myself up a lot. And so sometimes I'll get that, or I need it from a friend. Like I'll go back up to the support groups here and I'll talk to my friends or whatever else. And my buddy Jason Matthews is always like, dude, you're in your 6th year of real estate. Look at what you're doing right now. It's like, you've got a podcast, you've got, thousands of listeners on it. You've got all these things going on. You've got a little coaching program going, you've got, people paying money for that. Like you've got a successful real estate career. You've got a great team. You've got your own office. You got a beautiful house, cars, family, all this great stuff. And I'm just like, oh yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, you're right for now. And then you wake back up in the morning and then you start over again.
I'm broke.
That's how I always am. It's like I'm always broke. Like I always think I'm broke, or I'm like, I'm so afraid of going broke.
Well, it's because you don't know what's going to happen 30, 60, 90 days from now.
Right,
You're like,
right.
Man,
well, we've had
crazy.
it before, right? We've talked about our ebbs and flows all the time of not doing the things that we need to do at a high level, or we do it like we get really busy and then we take our foot off lead gen, right? So we close everything out. We're sitting on a mountain of money, and then within 30 days, after paying all our bills and watching everything, go out, now you've got more money going out than you have coming in because you made all this money. So you go out and you buy a new toy like a golf cart.
Easy come, easy go.
Exactly. And so, but you weren't in action the whole time, or you were taking a break. And that's the scariest thing is like, once you take a break in this business, is that it can break you, And so that's my fear all the time. So, I have to go back and remember that who I am is that I'm a hustler. I'll go out and make it no matter what. The number one thing I have to do is every day is I have to wake up and realize that I am unemployed and I need to go get hired by somebody every single day. I need appointments every day. I have to put myself in front of people to get them to know, like, and trust me, turn that into listings, and then turn those listings into leads, and then pass those on to my team. And then that becomes the leverage that we're all looking for in this business. And it becomes a repetitious cycle. And so that's the only way to do these things is to keep that cycle going. Listings, leads, leverage, right? And so the more leverage you have, the more listings you can take, the more leads that come in for my team, the more we can keep this whole thing going, and it leading with revenue. It turns into revenue. It turns into podcasts. It turns into more learning possibilities for us to take into our coaching program. And then, as we build into that, other things that we want to do and build Squirrel Farm Media, like I realize all this stuff is perpetuated off like remaining who I am and keeping focused and not getting too big of a head either. The minute you get a big head, I think you're done there too. Mm-hmm. So what do you think about that, James?
I try not to have too big of a head.
Your earphones would say different.
Actually, my friends give me a hard time about that. Like, you fit that ego inside that door? You got to turn sideways? I'm like, hey, don't worry about that.
Yep. I go through that quite a bit. All right, man. So when shit hits the fan, you know what to do now. Don't fight or flight. Keep calm and carry on.
That's right.
Right. So just keep calm. Think it through. Don't be reactional. Think. How can everybody at the table win in this situation? How does your seller win? How does your buyer win? How does their seller or buyer win? And how do you walk away with a win-win? We were kind of taught that through the system we came through with KW. That was big on their end, and I never really understood it. I was always out for blood when I negotiated. I wanted your blood.
Shark in the water.
Yeah, and so I would see weakness and I would exploit it, as far as negotiations go, and I would see that, maybe the property was on the market for, if the average was 20, 25 days on, was the average market, ADOM, I would look at that and it would be at 100 days. I would knew that I could turn that into dollars for my buyer. Right. Yep. So I could certainly get a nice little fat discount and go for the Gusco. My whole thing is I've mentioned that book 1,000 times is go for no. Right. Yep. So you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if you want to take a low ball offer at somebody, take it. All they can do is say no, and that's when you come up and you actually start negotiating.
And just hope nobody slides in between then and there.
Right, but when you're at 100 days on the market, you've had that.
It always slides in there.
You actually had that backfire.
We're in multiple offers.
Right, so yeah, exactly. Where'd that come from? And a lot of times you just call it like BS, right? Especially if you win.
Yeah.
Like you win the multiple offer. You're like, oh, yeah, we're going to go with you. It's like, yeah, let me see that. I try to be transparent when we have that crazy stuff happen is I'll do a CC email, a BCC email to all parties. And I'll typically say like, hey, all parties, this is a multiple offer situation. I know that the property's been on for 84 days. However, there's a reason why all of you guys looked at this at one time. It was right after the price drop. It attracted more people. Now we're in a multiple offer situation. Please put your best foot forward by Tuesday at 10 a.m. Right? And I'll have an answer for you by noon.
And don't hit reply all to your offer.
Well,
or email.
They're BCC'd, so I'm good.
Yeah.
But
I've had some funny times when people reply all accidentally and just blast out some information like, I don't think you meant to do that.
Yeah. I think we had one of those the other day. No, Melanie had a virus on her computer the other day and sent it to our whole database of 5,000 people. So that was fun.
Got our phones ringing.
Yeah, I got our phones ringing for sure.
One touch. Melanie's trying to up our touches.
All right, so have a support group, have a person that you can speak to, have somebody. If you're not hiring a coach these days, get out there. There's plenty of advice you can seek from people or questions you can ask on Facebook groups. Join a committee, find somebody in your office that can kind of have a similar problem. Don't dwell on the problems, get over them. Don't be reactional. Like I said, keep calm and carry on. That is going to do it for today. So let's go ahead and talk mortgages.
Finance. Let's get that money.
Mike. Haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, exactly. Mark Harrell's our man. He's the guy that makes this show happen. We certainly appreciate it, Mike Harrell, over at Guaranteed Rate. If you'd like to get a hold of Mike, you can hit him on email at info@realestateontherocks.com. We will forward it straight to his email. I would give you his email, and this is probably like long overdue that I need to give his email out, but I don't know it off the top of my hand. And I work on the seller side, so I never really email him.
99% sure it's mike@rate.com.
Mike@rate.com. Okay.
99% sure.
Might be Mike Harrell, but
I think it's just Mike.
Okay.
I can look real quick.
No. We'll get to it next time. Just info@realestateontherocks.com. So we appreciate it. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button right now. Lean over.
Right now.
Hit that. Then give a 5-star review and let us know what we could do better for you.
I'm out.